Don't start the engine again. The voice came from behind me just as my hand closed around the key. I turned and found a man standing beside an old dark blue pickup, rain collecting on the shoulders of his work shirt. He was tall, maybe 30, with rolled sleeves, grease across one forearm, and the kind of serious expression that made me immediately let go of the ignition. Wasn't planning to, I lied. He glanced at the dead dashboard, then at me. You were literally turning the key. Okay, I was planning to. One corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. My Honda had died 10 minutes earlier on a two-lane road outside town. My phone was at 6%, roadside assistance had given me a 90-minute estimate, and the rain was getting harder. I had been in Oregon for less than a month. Apparently, the car had already decided it hated my new life. The stranger stepped closer to the hood. Pop it. I hesitated. Not because he seemed dangerous. He didn't. He looked tired, solid, and annoyingly good in a way that made normal things, like standing in the rain, feel unfair. Are you a mechanic? His eyes dropped to the stitched name above his pocket. Grant. Under it. Miller Auto Repair. Sometimes. I laughed before I could stop myself. That's reassuring. This time, he actually smiled. It changed his whole face. Softer. Warmer. Then he nodded toward the hood again. I pulled the release. Grant leaned over the engine while I stood beside him, pretending I understood anything he was doing. His hands moved quickly, confident and careful. He checked the battery, adjusted a loose connection, then reached into his truck for a tool. You just move here? My stomach tightened a little. Is it that obvious? Out-of-state plates. Rental sticker on the apartment parking pass. He pointed toward the windshield without looking up. And you look surprised that rain can come sideways. I'm from Arizona. That explains it. What does that mean? You're wearing shoes with no grip. I looked down at my soaked sneakers. They were a bad choice. They're a terrible choice. His voice stayed flat, but I caught the hint of amusement again. It probably meant nothing. He was just being friendly. Or maybe mechanics made fun of stranded customers for entertainment. A few minutes later, Grant straightened and wiped his hands on an old red shop towel. Try it now. The engine coughed, then turned over. Relief hit me so fast I nearly laughed. You're kidding. Temporary fix. He closed the hood. Drive straight to the garage. Don't stop anywhere. How much do I owe you? Nothing. You stopped in the rain and fixed my car. I tightened a cable. Still. He held out his hand for the keys so he could check the ignition one more time. When I passed them over, our fingers touched. Just a second. Maybe less. But neither of us moved right away. His eyes dropped to our hands, then lifted to mine. The rain tapped against the hood between us. My chest tightened for no good reason. Grant finally took the keys and cleared his throat. Garage is 3 miles east. Big red sign. Hard to miss. Thanks. Get there before this dies again, Evan. I froze. He was already walking back toward his truck. Wait. Grant looked over his shoulder. How do you know my name? His gaze shifted to the employee badge still clipped to my jacket. Then he gave me that almost smile again. Drive safe, Evan. I told myself the strange feeling in my stomach was embarrassment. But when his truck pulled out behind me and followed all the way to the garage, I started wondering why he hadn't passed. The next morning, Grant had my coffee waiting before I even walked through the door. I stopped just inside Miller Auto Repair, staring at the paper cup on the counter while an impact wrench rattled somewhere in the back. That is either incredibly thoughtful or slightly concerning. Grant looked up from a clipboard. Same dark work shirt. Same rolled sleeves. Less rain this time. Vanilla cold brew. No whipped cream. My hand tightened around my car keys. How do you know that? He nodded toward the cup I had been holding on the side of the road yesterday. You remember what strangers drink. Only the ones who try to restart a dying car after being told not to. I should have had a better response. Instead, I smiled like an idiot and picked up the coffee. It was exactly right. You followed me all the way here last night. Grant turned toward the open service bay. Your battery cable was barely holding. So it was professional concern. He glanced back at me. His eyes stayed there a second longer than necessary. Something like that. My chest did that annoying little tightening thing again. I took a drink so I would not have to answer. Grant brought my Honda into the first bay and lifted the hood. I stood nearby while he explained the problem in words I understood individually, but not together. Corrosion. Terminal. Alternator test. I nodded anyway. You do not know what I am talking about, do you? Not even a little. A quiet laugh slipped out of him. Come here. I moved beside him, close enough to smell soap under the faint scent of motor oil. Grant pointed beneath the hood, showing me the loose connection. I leaned in to look. At the same moment, the hood shifted slightly above us. His palm landed against the middle of my back and pulled me toward him. Careful. My shoulder brushed his chest. For a second, neither of us moved. His hand stayed where it was, warm and steady through my jacket. I could feel my heartbeat everywhere. Grant looked down at me. Not startled. Not exactly. Just focused in that same quiet way he had watched me in the rain. Then someone behind us cleared his throat. Need me to give you two some privacy with the alternator? A younger mechanic stood near the tool chest, grinning. Grant removed his hand immediately. Go find something useful to do, Tyler. Tyler lifted both hands and walked away, still smiling. Heat climbed up my neck. Grant turned back to the engine, jaw tight. He talks too much. I noticed. The silence that followed felt heavier than it should have. I stared at the coffee cup instead of at him. So, how long have you lived here? Grant shifted a tool in his hand. My whole life. You remember every customer this well. He went still, just for a beat. Then his gaze moved from the engine to me. No, one word. Calm. Direct. My stomach dropped anyway. Before I could decide what that meant, Grant reached for the invoice and wrote something at the bottom. Car will be ready by 4. He slid the paper across the counter. Beneath the estimate was a phone number. That the garage line? Grant leaned one hand on the counter. My cell. In case the car acts up again? A small smile touched his mouth. Sure, Evan. In case it is the car. Over the next 2 weeks, I ran into Grant 4 times. The first was at the coffee shop on Tuesday morning. He was standing near the pickup counter in a clean black t-shirt, looking strange without grease on his hands. You following me now? I tried to make it sound casual. Grant glanced at my cup, then at me. You came in after I did. That is exactly what someone following me would say. He smiled, but he did not answer. Instead, he moved his jacket off the empty chair across from him. You working? I looked at my laptop bag. Trying to. Sit down. I will be quiet. He was not quiet. He asked about my design work, complained about a customer who tried to fix an engine with duct tape, and somehow remembered that I had a client call at 10. When I checked the time, he had already packed up. You should go, he murmured. You hate being late. I had told him that once. In the rain. For maybe 30 seconds. The second time was at the grocery store. Grant appeared at the end of the cereal aisle while I was holding 2 frozen pizzas and a carton of eggs. His eyes moved over my basket. That is not dinner. It is several dinners. That makes it worse. Before I could stop him, he took one of the grocery bags from my hand at checkout and carried it to my car. You do this for every customer? I teased. Grant looked at me over the roof of the Honda. You are not at the garage. The joke died between us. Not awkwardly. Worse. Quietly. His gaze held mine until I forgot what I was supposed to say. Then a shopping cart slammed into the curb nearby, and we both looked away. The third time was at a weekend food truck lot downtown. I was waiting for tacos when someone stepped beside me and held out a napkin. You have sauce on your face. Grant's thumb brushed the corner of my mouth before I could take it from him. He froze. So did I? His hand dropped slowly. Sorry. It is fine. It was not fine. My pulse had jumped so hard I could feel it in my throat. A woman behind the counter looked between us and smiled. You two want one check. Separate. I answered too quickly. Grant said nothing. He only watched me while I paid. The fourth time was late Thursday night outside a convenience store. Rain hit the parking lot in sharp little bursts, and Grant stood under the awning beside me while we waited for it to ease. This town is either incredibly small, I told him, or you are actually following me. He turned his head. No smile this time. Would that bother you? My chest tightened. I laughed because I did not know what else to do. Depends. Are you dangerous? Grant took one small step closer, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Probably not. The rain kept falling. Neither of us moved. Then my phone buzzed, breaking whatever had been happening. I looked down and pretended to read the screen. When I finally looked up again, Grant was watching me with an expression I could not explain away as friendliness. That night, after I got home, my phone lit up with a message from his number. Made it home okay? I stared at it for almost a full minute before answering. Yeah, you? 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then came back. Good. I was starting to think I would have to find another excuse to run into you. After that message, Tuesday mornings stopped feeling accidental. Grant would get to the coffee shop before me, claim the table by the window, and leave the chair across from him empty even when the place was crowded. I would walk in pretending I had not checked for his truck in the parking lot first. Neither of us mentioned it. That was the routine. He ordered plain coffee. I ordered vanilla cold brew. He complained about customers who ignored dashboard lights. I complained about clients who used the phrase, "make it pop," like it meant anything. Somewhere between the second and third Tuesday, we started texting every day. Nothing important at first. A picture of a car someone had held together with zip ties. A photo of the frozen pizza I burned after he insulted my grocery choices. One night, he sent me a picture of an empty diner booth with the message, "This place has actual food, in case you ever get tired of poisoning yourself." I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I typed, "Is that an invitation?" The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. It could be. My heart started pounding over 4 words on a screen. I told myself that was ridiculous. He was being friendly. Grant was just quiet enough to make normal sentences sound loaded. The next Tuesday, he did not show up. I arrived at 8, ordered my drink, and sat at our table. Our table. That thought alone should have embarrassed me. By 8:15, I had checked the door 6 times. By 8:30, I was pretending to work while reading the same email over and over. At 8:42, Grant rushed inside wearing his work shirt, one sleeve still rolled lower than the other. There was a streak of grease near his jaw. His eyes found me immediately. "Sorry." He dropped into the chair across from me. "Customer came in before opening." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. "You could have texted." Grant went still. So did I. The noise of the coffee shop seemed to fall away. I looked down at my laptop. "I mean, not that you had to. I just thought maybe something happened." "You were waiting for me?" His voice was quieter now. I forced a shrug. "We usually both end up here. Right?" He leaned back, watching me. "By accident." Heat climbed up my neck. "That is what we have been calling it." A small smile touched his mouth, but it faded almost immediately. "Evan." The way he said my name made me look up. Grant reached across the table and brushed his thumb over the side of my hand. There was a tiny ink mark near my knuckle. He could have pointed it out. He could have handed me a napkin. Instead, his fingers stayed there. Mine did too. His gaze dropped to our hands, then lifted slowly to my face. My breath caught. For 1 second, I thought he was going to say it. Whatever this was. Whatever we had both been circling for weeks. "Do you want me to stop showing up?" he murmured. My chest tightened. No, the answer came too fast. Too honest. Grant's thumb moved once against my skin. Then the front door opened, and Tyler walked in carrying 2 boxes of donuts. His eyes landed on us. Grant pulled his hand back. I closed my laptop so quickly I nearly caught my finger in it. Tyler looked between us, smiling like he had just solved something. "Morning." Grant cleared his throat. "You were supposed to be at the garage. And you were supposed to be getting coffee." Tyler set the boxes on the table. "Looks like you got distracted." Grant gave him a warning look, but the moment was already gone. I told myself that was probably for the best. Then Grant leaned closer as Tyler walked away. "You never answered the other question." "What other question?" His eyes held mine. "Do you still think these are accidents?" I did not answer Grant's question. Tyler was still close enough to hear, and something about being watched made the words lock in my throat. Grant noticed. Of course he did. His expression changed just slightly before he leaned back and reached for his coffee. "Right," he murmured. "Bad timing." The rest of the morning felt off. Not ruined. Just careful. Grant left first, and Tyler gave me a look on his way out like he knew exactly what had almost happened. I spent the next 3 days replaying it anyway. His hand over mine. The way he asked if I wanted him to stop showing up. The fact that I had answered no without thinking. By Friday afternoon, I decided to stop being a coward. I picked up 2 coffees and drove to the garage. Grant's truck was outside, and the bay doors were open. I could hear music playing somewhere in the back. Then I saw him near the office. He was holding a little girl against his side while a woman stood beside him, laughing as she fixed the collar of his shirt. The girl had dark curls and pink rain boots. Grant smiled down at her in a way I had never seen before. Soft. Easy. Familiar. My stomach dropped. It should not have. Grant had never told me he was single. He had never told me anything. Really. A few coffees and some loaded texts did not make me part of his life. I stood there long enough for Tyler to notice me from across the shop. His eyes moved to the drinks in my hands, then toward Grant. He opened his mouth. I shook my head before he could call out. I left 1 coffee on the front counter and walked back to my car. Grant texted before I made it home. You came by? I stared at the screen. Just dropping off coffee. Thanks. Everything okay? Yeah. Busy. It was a weak answer, and Grant knew it. He called twice. I let both calls ring out. By 7, rain had started tapping against my apartment windows. At 7:15, someone knocked. Grant stood outside when I opened the door, damp hair, jaw tight, the coffee I had left still in his hand. You have been avoiding me all day. I told you. I was busy. You work from home. That does not mean I do nothing. His eyes narrowed. That is not what I meant. I folded my arms, mostly so he would not see how nervous my hands were. You did not have to come over. You would not answer. Maybe I needed space. The words landed harder than I intended. Grant went quiet. For a second, I thought he might leave. Then he looked down at the cup. Was it because of Rachel? I hated how quickly my face gave me away. Grant let out a breath and rubbed a hand over his jaw. She is my sister. I blinked. What? Rachel is my younger sister. The little girl is my niece, Lily. Heat rushed into my face so fast it hurt. I did not think you did. There was no anger in his voice. That somehow made it worse. Grant stepped closer, not enough to crowd me, just enough that I had to look at him. Lily wanted to meet you. Why? His mouth twitched, but he looked almost embarrassed. Because apparently I talk about the guy with the unreliable Honda too much. My chest tightened. Neither of us moved. Rainwater slid from his jacket onto the hallway floor. Grant's eyes stayed on mine. So tell me the truth, Evan. His voice dropped. Why did you leave when you saw them? I looked at Grant standing in my hallway, rain still darkening the shoulders of his jacket, and realized there was no version of the truth that did not make me sound completely exposed. I thought she was your wife. His eyebrows lifted. My wife? Or girlfriend? I do not know. I rubbed a hand over the back of my neck. You were holding a kid. She was fixing your shirt. It looked like a family. Yeah. Grant stared at me for a second, then looked down at the coffee cup in his hand. A quiet laugh escaped him, but there was no humor in it. So you left because you thought I was with someone. I hated how direct that sounded. I left because it was none of my business. That is not the same thing. The hallway suddenly felt too small. I glanced toward my apartment, then back at him. Do you want to come in? Grant followed me inside and set the untouched coffee on the kitchen counter. Neither of us sat down. I stayed near the sink. He stood a few feet away, hands in his jacket pockets, watching me like he was waiting for something I had spent weeks avoiding. You asked why I left, I started. I told you. Not really. Grant. Evan. My name came out soft, but it stopped me anyway. He took one step closer. You thought I had a girlfriend, and it bothered you. My heart started pounding. I never said that. You did not have to. I looked away. The apartment was too quiet. Even the rain seemed louder against the windows. This is exactly why I did not want to read into anything. Anything like what? The coffee. The texts. You showing up everywhere. You think I do that with everyone? I do not know what you do with everyone. Grant's jaw tightened. For the first time since I met him, he looked nervous. Not unsure of me. Unsure of himself. He pulled one hand from his pocket and dragged it through his damp hair. I changed my Tuesday schedule. I blinked. What? At the garage. I moved my morning off because I knew you worked from the coffee shop. My chest tightened. Grant kept going before I could speak. I started shopping on Thursday nights because you told me that was when you went. I took the longer way home twice because it passed your apartment. He let out a slow breath. So no, Evan. Those were not all accidents. I stared at him, every excuse I had been using suddenly gone. Why did you not just tell me? His eyes held mine. Because I did not know if you wanted me to. And now, Grant moved closer again. There was barely a foot between us. Now I know you got jealous. I did not say jealous. You left 2 coffees and ignored my calls. A small, nervous smile touched his mouth. That felt pretty jealous. I should have denied it. Instead, I whispered, maybe a little. Something shifted in his face. Relief, maybe. His hand lifted, hesitated, then settled lightly around my wrist. His thumb pressed against my pulse like he could feel how fast it was moving. Good, he murmured. Because I did not want you to leave. My breath caught. Grant looked down at our hands, then back at me. And I do not want things to go back to normal. What was normal? His thumb moved once against my skin, pretending I was not looking for you every time a door opened. For 1 second, I thought Grant was going to kiss me. His hand was still around my wrist. His eyes dropped to my mouth, then lifted again. The space between us felt charged in a way I could not pretend was friendly anymore. Then his phone rang. The sound cut through the apartment so sharply that we both stepped back. Grant checked the screen and went pale. "It is my dad." He answered immediately, turning toward the window. I only caught pieces. "Chest pain. Emergency room. On the way." By the time he hung up, the softness in his face was gone, replaced by something tight and controlled. "I have to go." "Of course." He grabbed his keys from the counter. I followed him to the door, wanting to say something useful and coming up with nothing. "Text me when you know he is okay." Grant nodded, but his mind was already somewhere else. Then he left. I heard nothing that night. Nothing the next morning either. I sent one message around 10. "How is your dad?" No answer. By Tuesday, our table at the coffee shop stayed empty. I sat there for 20 minutes anyway, staring at the door like an idiot before packing up my laptop. At first, I told myself Grant was overwhelmed. Then the old thoughts started creeping in. Maybe the phone call had given him an excuse to step back. Maybe he had gone home, replayed everything, and decided it was a mistake. Maybe "I do not want things to go back to normal" had sounded different once he was alone. On Wednesday afternoon, I drove past the garage. The bay doors were closed. A handwritten sign on the office window read "Family Emergency. Closed until further notice." My chest tightened. I called. Straight to voicemail. I tried Tyler next. He answered on the fourth ring. "Evan, is Grant okay?" There was a pause. "His dad had a heart attack. He is stable, but Grant is handling everything. Hospital, paperwork, customers. You know how he is." "Not really." The words came out quieter than I intended. Tyler let out a breath. "Yeah, you do." I gripped the steering wheel. He has not answered me. He has not answered anyone. Another pause. "Do not make this about you." That stung because he was right. I thanked him and hung up. That evening, Grant finally texted. "Dad is stable. Sorry I disappeared." I stared at the message, trying to decide whether the apology meant he wanted me close or wanted to close the door gently. I typed 3 different replies before settling on. "I am glad he is okay. Let me know if you need anything." His answer came 10 minutes later. "I will." He did not. 2 more days passed. Then I saw him outside the grocery store, loading bottled water into his truck. He looked exhausted. Same work shirt. Dark circles under his eyes. He noticed me and froze. "Hey. Hey." The distance between us felt bigger than the parking lot. I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets. "I did not know if you wanted me around." Grant's face changed. "Why would you think that?" "You stopped answering." "My dad almost died." "I know. I am not blaming you." My voice tightened anyway. "I just thought maybe what happened at my apartment was too much." Grant stared at me, hurt flashing across his face before he looked away. "You think I regret it?" "I do not know what you think." He closed the truck bed harder than necessary. "That is the problem, Evan. Every time something gets real, you decide what I feel before I get to tell you." I went still. Grant rubbed both hands over his face, then looked back at me. "I did not pull away because I was ashamed of you." His voice dropped. "I pulled away because I was scared, and I did not know how to need someone without making it their problem." I looked at Grant across the grocery store parking lot and finally understood that waiting for him to make this easier was just another way of hiding. "Then let me decide if it is a problem." He went still. Cars moved behind us. A cart rattled across the pavement. Neither of us looked away. "What?" His voice came out tired. Almost careful. I stepped closer. "You keep deciding you have to handle everything alone. Your dad. The garage. Me." Grant's jaw tightened. "I was trying not to drag you into something. You already did." His eyes dropped for a second. "That is not fair." "No. What is not fair is showing up in my life over and over, telling me none of it was accidental, then disappearing the second I start believing you." The words came faster than I meant them to. Grant looked hurt, but he did not step back. "I told you why." "I know." I took a breath. Slower this time. "And I am not angry that you were scared. I am angry that you thought I would leave if I saw you struggling." His hands tightened around the edge of the truck bed. "People usually do." The answer was so quiet it almost disappeared under the traffic. My chest tightened. "I am not people." Grant let out a short breath and looked away. "You barely know me. I know you remember my coffee order. I know you hate sweet drinks. I know you act annoyed when you are worried. I know you changed your schedule just to see me." I moved closer until only a few feet separated us. "And I know you have been looking at me like you want something, then acting like I imagined it." His eyes came back to mine. "You did not imagine it." The parking lot seemed to go quiet. Then say it. Grant swallowed. One hand came off the truck and hung at his side, uncertain. Evan. No, my heart was pounding, but I did not look away. We are done pretending this is normal. He stared at me for a long second. Then he stepped forward. Not enough to touch me. Just enough that I could see how exhausted he was. How scared. I wanted to kiss you in your apartment. My breath caught. Grant kept going before either of us could lose the nerve. I wanted to text you from the hospital. I picked up my phone 5 times. His mouth tightened. But every message sounded like I was asking you to take care of me. Maybe I wanted you to ask. His eyes softened. Why? Because I care about you. The truth was out before I could soften it. I rubbed my palms against my jeans. More than I planned to. More than makes sense after a few weeks. Grant looked down, then back at me. It makes sense to me. That hurt in the best way. He reached for my hand slowly, giving me time to move. I did not. His fingers closed around mine. Warm. Careful. I care about you too, he murmured. And I do not want to go back to pretending I just happen to be wherever you are. I squeezed his hand. Good. Grant's thumb brushed across my knuckles. Good. Yeah. I stepped closer. Because tomorrow I am going to the hospital with you. His eyes widened slightly. Evan, you do not have to. I know. I held his gaze. That is the point. The next morning, I met Grant outside the hospital with 2 coffees and no idea what I was supposed to do. He looked at the cup in my hand, then at me. You remembered. Plain. No sugar. A tired smile pulled at his mouth. That is disturbingly thoughtful. I learned from a professional. We walked inside together. No dramatic conversation. No big promise. Just fluorescent lights, bad vending machine snacks, and Grant's hand brushing mine until I finally turned my palm over and held on. He looked down at our hands, then up at me. He did not pull away. His dad recovered slowly. The garage reopened the following week, and life started moving again. But not back to normal. Not the old version, anyway. On Tuesday morning, I walked into the coffee shop and found Grant at our table by the window. My drink was already there. He had saved the chair across from him, like always. Except this time, when I sat down, he moved his chair closer instead. Subtle, I murmured. Grant opened his coffee. I am done being subtle. My stomach flipped, but I smiled. Good. A woman at the next table glanced over when his knee pressed against mine. Grant noticed. For half a second, I felt him tense. Then his hand found mine under the table. His fingers laced through mine and stayed there. That was it. Small. Quiet. But it meant more than any speech could have. A few days later, I stopped by the garage even though my Honda was running perfectly. Grant was under a truck when I arrived. He rolled out, saw me, and smiled before he could stop himself. Tyler noticed immediately. Car trouble again? Nope. I held up a bag from the diner. Lunch. Tyler looked between us. For both of you. Grant wiped his hands on a shop towel and walked over. Just me. Then he took the bag with one hand and reached for mine with the other. Right there in the open bay. Right in front of Tyler. No hesitation. Tyler grinned like he had been waiting weeks for this. Finally, Grant gave him a flat look. Go rotate something. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my coffee. Later, we sat on the curb behind the garage, eating burgers out of paper wrappers. Grant leaned his shoulder against mine. You know, he murmured, your car has not broken down in a while. Do you sound disappointed? A little. I looked at him. You could always ask to see me. His eyes softened. I know that now. He reached for my hand again, thumb brushing across my knuckles. The same way he had in my apartment. The same way he had in the parking lot. Only now neither of us had to wonder what it meant. Looking back, nothing about us happened all at once. It was one roadside stop. One coffee. One text. One choice to show up. Then another. Then another. We stopped running into each other after that. Mostly because neither of us was pretending anymore.